Hi class, and welcome to Chapter 4, Rules of Engagement for Social Media. I don't know that it's really appropriate to call them rules per se. It's as good a term as any, I suppose. But there are some policies or some suggested ways to paths to follow that will improve or enhance your chances of your social media marketing efforts to be successful. And there are basically two different policies or strategies to take. One is interruption marketing and the other one is permission marketing. So interruption marketing is you're trying to get in their face as they navigate through a conversation or through a particular site like Facebook, or they're just cruising the web, because we're all being tracked from a number of different sources. You know, Google, if you use Google quite a bit, is your search engine, and it would be the same for Microsoft or Yahoo. Whoever you're using has cookies or spiders that are tracking your particular activities, watching you to see what you're looking at, so that they can create an opportunity for a prospective company, product, service to inject an offer in front of you that might interest you based on again what they see as you either being interested in on an ongoing basis or being interested in based on your searches of the moment. Permission marketing, on the other hand, is a newer advent, and those are largely opt-in messaging from different vendors that seek to give you periodic notices of what it is they're up to that might be of interest to you. And people tend to choose engagement with brands that are authentic, transparent, show care and empathy, respect consumers' time and opinions, and have a human presence online. And there are certain brands and companies that lend themselves to these sorts of characteristics. Some that come to my mind off the top of my head, I mean, they range from something like Playboy to M&M's. I don't know that Playboy necessarily shows care and empathy, but they do have a personality. I think that's for sure. So you do have more and more companies that are rethinking their marketing strategies, and as a consequence are redistributing monies in their overall budget to the different marketing or advertising budget to the different venues that exist for them to get their messages out. And your book profiled Pepsi's decision in 2009 not to run Super Bowl ads, which could have been for a number of reasons. I mean, Super Bowl ads are traditionally extremely expensive, and they're really pretty creative. And so there's the cost of running the ad per se. A 15 or 30 second ad runs into the multiple millions, and you've got the production costs on top of that. And then Super Bowl ads, the bar's pretty high in terms of creativity, so they have to stand out in the mind's eye of the consumer, and that's hard. There's a lot of clutter out there. You know, there's a lot of competition for the limited space that exists in people's heads. Not that most people have limited space in their heads, but that could be true. In any case, Pepsi decided to run more money into social media marketing because more and more it has a higher return on investment. Now there's essentially two strategies that two entry-level strategies that a company can pursue. The passive strategy is to listen to what people are saying and then respond to them with a conversation, try to start a conversation. The other would be more active or aggressive, and that would be to create personas, profiles. We talked about that a couple of chapters ago, and connecting with people that are key influencers within groups, like on a particular site, a particular Facebook site that talks about a particular issue. You'll have some individuals that are greater influencers than others, and then engage those people in a conversation, and then hopefully that will develop out or evolve out into involving other people within those communicative groups. One of the principles for success is the PARC principles, being participatory, interact with the community, answer questions, etc., where it's appropriate for you or your product or company to do so. Be authentic. Authentic revolves, if you think again about M&M's, lots of other brands that have a personality. They're likable, they're trustworthy, and you can leverage that customer perception in your discussions. Be resourceful, present useful and relevant content or helpful information. So if you're a bank, for example, depending on the group, you might talk about in its, let's say, first home mortgage that you're promoting or discussing. You may want to provide helpful information around different tax issues that are associated with buying your principal residence or even investment property. So that might include something like a 1031 tax deferred exchange or something like that. And you want your website, obviously, eventually to be credible around its expertise in the field. I just talked about a bank, for example. And that relates directly back to a particular brand's trustworthiness. So, some rules of engagement. That's what the chapter is supposed to be about. I'd say some things to keep in mind. And the first would be use the social media channels as they were intended to be used when they were created. So, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, they all have different intended outcomes in terms of the communications that occur and the information that is shared on those sites. So what this is saying is be sensitive to what each of these channels are intended for, and don't try to operate outside of those parameters, because you'll just it raises a red flag with the users if you try to co-opt them into some other conversation, let's say. Don't be a dirty spammer. All of us receive crap email all the time from myriads of different outfits who use the web primarily just for spam purposes. And why the ROI for a spam campaign might be in dollars pretty good. I mean, when you're sending out literally millions and millions of emails, if it's millions and you get 0.5% to actually respond, then that can be pretty good. On the other hand, for brands that are trying to develop a reputation or connection with their customers over time, it can be an incredible annoyance and backfire on you. Assume people don't care about your product. What does that mean? Well, it means you should enter this believing or assuming they know nothing about you, and the connection that you make with them should be around a benefit that's of value to them. And people tend to buy benefits, not attributes. So if you said, for example, why do people buy a hybrid? Well, there's a little bit of image thing that goes along there of I'm doing good and all that, but the benefits, those are the attribute is the car is a hybrid. The benefit is it can save you time because you don't have to fill it up so often, and over time it can save you money. Those are the benefits. Well, people buy benefits or perceived benefits and not attributes per se. So when you go into it, assume they don't know anything about you and try to explain the benefits of engaging in a conversation with you around their product. What are some things that people like to save? Well, in my example, they like to save money. And what are other things before you enter a conversation with them, because your assumption is they have a need or an interest in your product? What else is in it for them? Why would they care about spending any time whatsoever dealing with you? So you have to be careful that you're not just giving them a sales pitch, but rather you're sharing information with them that would have a benefit of some kind. Your product or service should have a personality, and that be reflected in the conversation, because people like to engage with a brand that has a personality first of all, and that they can that personality resonates and is key to the group with which they're having a conversation around the particular product or service or issue at hand. Provide context when seeking connections. So again, a lot of groups that exist because the people that are in that group have a common interest. And so you want to make sure that your messages and your very presence can have some relevance to that group and the common thread that keeps that group together. Don't try to come into a group that and change the very nature of the group, because it'll reflect poorly on you. You want to try to convert people in the whole process of the conversation. So providing context is simple, and in some cases just requires a quick note. Adding a brief note context can often lead to higher acceptance rates on various connection requests. Be transparent. That means be honest, be open. Don't use the site as a place to BS people. You want to be open and prepared to address problems in the open in an honest manner. If you're the Exxon Valdez, for example, you want to be prepared to answer a lot of hard questions. And over time, that should, as long as you're transparent and again not defensive, the tone of the whole conversation is going to be important. You can definitely use these sites to develop a following and a group with a common cause that favors you. Talk about the topic. Again, these groups often exist because of a common focus, and you want to make sure that you stay on the focus of the conversation and not just for self-promotion. If you're self-centered, if you're self-centered, that's a very quick way to be ignored in real life and online. So don't try to hijack conversations and try to shift them into other purposes. So social media profiles are not billboards. Again, this is not a place to just advertise your stuff and take a position of it. This is all about me, me, me. Again, you want to be a helpful, honest, transparent part of an overall conversation. And don't look for different social media profiles or websites just as a way to promote your message, one given message. Again, over and over, you hear it over and over, and I've said it several times. This is about having conversations. And finally, you want to be nice. You want to have a good, friendly tone. You don't want to be defensive. You want to be polite because it doesn't cost anything, and look for ways to publicly or privately thank people who it's helped that should be thanked or acknowledged, and look back for opportunities to give back to other people in the same community. Ethics within the social media marketing are very similar to the same code of ethics that would apply in traditional marketing. I mean, it's all about honesty, privacy, respect, responsibility, acknowledgement, apologizing, and acting in a responsible way. And as far as making ethical decisions, in a situation in which ethical standards could be possibly breached, it's best to err on the side of caution and avoid potentially unethical action. That just makes sense. I mean, rather than screw up and say something you're going to regret, like politicians more and more and more are caught doing, it's best to do some research so you don't get caught with your pants down and end up having to retract things that you've made widely public.